extremely dramatic cut. And when we tell governments this, they didn't know, they don't remember, they don't have the institutional memory. But we were on our way out. I was sitting in conference room 9 in the old UN building, where this was taking place, and the distribution of information at the time was muddled. It wasn't good. So it was not, I was looking for the room, and I finally found it. I went in there, and I was alone. And the discussion was, what are we going to do with the match groups? Should we include them as we have done in the first 10 years? The Americans were there, and the guy who was there from the US was absolutely brilliant, and he was not willing to let civil society out. It was headed by, the meeting was chaired by a Mexican, a woman from the Mexican mission, and she's doing a great job. She's very sympathetic to major groups. And there were a few others that were sort of leaning towards us and being positive. And I looked around and I thought, where can I sit and how can I sort of, because I was not allowed to speak. So the guy who was representing the EU was from the UK. He was young, he was looking okay, so I went up and I sat next to him and I fed him argument, and we held sort of the fort for a long, long time. And then the American was so good. He prepared himself. And you could see he was winning over the arguments more and more as the discussion went on. And this is what happened. I mean, he was just collecting the arguments, and he was going for the last kill. And this is exactly what happened. He says, okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say that... They turned around and looked at the audio, and the guy was there, and I thought, really? So, he said, come on out. He said, what? Why do you turn off the audio at 6 o'clock? The American government said no overtime, and we're going to do that. No overtime. He said, I don't believe this. So the American says, so we lost translation, we lost audio, and then the American representative said, well, look, guys, we all speak English here, so let's just finish this. And the Russian said, no, I want translation. Too important as And the electricians saved democracy that day, I think. So, let not that be the case if we have a council and we need to work on civil society in 2 years' time. Because the process is so important. And sometimes, you can be lucky. Is that all questions? Yes? Yes.
That answers it. No, that answers it. She actually asked one of my questions.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. How would the proposed CSD rein in the power of, say, the IMF, World Bank, global institutions that are actually responsible for promoting the neoliberal model of development? And also, you mentioned that in the SDGs, one of the, innovative proposals or elements of is the universal application.
Yeah.
But what does that mean for the principle of common but differentiated responsibility?
It's like our friend this morning said, when I mentioned the green economy, I always get these questions coming back, and that's one of them. What about the common but differentiated responsibilities? I think it's an important principle that needs to be applied with caution and not by automation. The downside, let me try to illustrate it. When the Kyoto Protocol was agreed in 1997, I was the only one in Norway writing against it, saying that it's crazy to have an Annex B countries. And that argument was used when the Senate in the US under Bush spent 2 minutes and 30 seconds to throw the Kyoto Protocol out of the window, because they said, why should millionaires in the developing world not pay taxes while we force our poor people in the West countries and the Appalachians to pay? Nonsense. And that's what we got. So I think that the whole discussion on the common differentiated principles needs to be applied contextually right. And our friend this morning talked about that. He said, what about the poverty alleviation schemes and green economy? Let me just put it this, and then we can discuss this afterwards, because I think you guys are being pushed to their limits on a Sunday. I would say that the outcome of the COPs on climate should have a universality principles where every country in the world needs to subscribe to emission regulations. And they're similar, US, Norway, whatever. Then Chad comes to Norway and said, we don't have the money. We don't have the technology. It's impossible. We want to, but politically it's impossible. Then Norway is obliged to say, common but differentiated responsibility, we will increase our aid to child by a factor of 25. That's how it should be done. But saying that you know, if you look at that, this is again going back to my thing, what is the world like today compared to what it was in 1970? Nigeria is investing all over the world. It's investing in Europe. South Africa is. Brazil is. Chile is. China is. You know, it's not this simple north-south thing, which was the basis for the common but differentiated responsibility. Then you need to look at the whole poverty alleviation scheme in a different way. What we do with poverty alleviation today is pittance. We don't take it seriously anymore. It's like charity. I remember when I was reading and studying pedagogy ages ago, I read a fantastic book by Paulo Freire called the Pedagogy of the Oppressed. He's got one sentence that woke me up. He said, if you really want to show how charitable you are, how benign your approach is, then you must keep poverty at a constant. At a constant level. Because if you change and you attack the root causes, you are no longer a charitable person. You become a politically conscious person. And so that's a tremendous change of mind. And I think that change of mind needs to be instilled in everybody. So we take poverty alleviation seriously. And not say, you know, dally with a percent here, 0.7% there. We take it seriously. So I say common but differentiated responsibility, but applied politically. And there was another part of the council discussion.
I'll be rein in the power.
Oh yes. Well, we won't know. We will be. But I mean, the president of ECOSOC, the top person at The Hague, they speak with the same authority, and Hague and the court speak with an authority above the World Bank. They cannot say, we're not going to talk to you because you're the head of the council. They don't do that because politically and diplomatically they're on the same level. But a program director of CSD, he's down there, and IMF is up here. So you raise that. Then of course it's up to the personality to be strong enough. But at least you give them the instrument there.
So it's a question about SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal. This is also a question I raised with Ambassador Jung this morning, but he didn't answer the question. What do you think about, is it the UNEP involved in this process of developing SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal? What is the UNEP's position and the UN in general? Because Ban Ki-moon said in his speech at General Assembly, he said, quote, let us develop the new generation of Sustainable Development Goals as, you know, the year 2000, post-year 2015, which indicate that he endorsed this proposal, you know. So I want to know whether it's true. What is your view?
Who is that endorsing it as?
The Ban Ki-moon,
yes,
in his speech at the UN General Assembly. And also your personal view on this.
Well, let me start with the easy thing, my personal views. I think I disagree with her strongly, and I've done so in even panels with Achim Steiner. I disagree with his policy of trying to make UNEP into a sustainable development institution. I think UNEP should be the prime mover with scientific basis on environmental issues, because the social issues are dealt with in so many other aspects. And UNEP as a program will never be able to challenge the IMFs, the World Banks, etc. They have the expertise in that. So I think that UNEP should be the strong force on environmental issues, the whole gambit of environment, which is my personal opinion. And then I said, let the Council on Sustainable Development deal with the three pillars from equal partners: sustainable development, the economy with the economic institutions, social institutions from WHO, UNESCO, etc., and environment from the specialized agency, UN specialized agency on environment. I have not heard anything from UNEP on the Colombia initiative. Nothing so far. Again, I said they're very new. UNEP is very strong in green economy. I think the strategy they're following is very, I think it's a brilliant strategy that Achim Steiner has drawn up on the green economy issue. They're really pushing that. So we'll have to see. We'll just have to follow the websites and see what they're saying. And Ban Ki-moon, as rightly said, he's embraced them. I agree with you. But he's embraced them as sustainable development goals, not necessarily something that UNEP or WHO or ILO should deal with. So we'll see. I think again going back to what I said, there seems to be a convergence of a number of issues. So we're going towards sort of one direction on the zero document. But then, as you pointed out, what about the small farmers? What about the land, etc.? What about the rural population? If they're forgotten, and let's fight that fight.
It has been forgotten.
Yeah, well, let's fight the fight.
Even in the CST, there was nothing on farmers. We fought very much, and then only farmers came.
Yeah. It's easy when you're not remembering. I think I've used up all the battery there is today. So. Any other questions?